You know, some people build companies, and then there are those rare few who, somehow, manage to build nations. This is the story of a man who did both. Not with loud headlines or a big show of power, but with this quiet dignity and an incredible sense of duty. Let's get into the life of the man they don't just call a businessman, they call him India's gem. It's Ratan.
And that quote, it just hits it right on the head, doesn't it? Because his story, it isn't really about profits and losses. It's about character, about duty, and about this quiet strength that honestly changed how a whole country saw itself.
So to really understand this titan of industry, we've got to go back, way back. We're not starting in a boardroom. We're starting in a home that was being torn apart.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1947. India is celebrating its freedom, its independence. But for a 10-year-old Ratan, his own world was just falling apart. His parents' divorce was all over the news, and at school, that made him a target. He was bullied, he was lonely, and his home life was just silent. But right in the middle of all that chaos, he found his rock, his grandmother, Navajbad. She taught him the one thing he couldn't learn in any school, how to have integrity. She told him, look, people are going to talk. They're going to try to bring you down, but you can never, ever let them break you. No matter what happens, you live with dignity. And that one piece of advice, it became the moral compass for his entire life. So, to get away from it all, he went to America to study architecture. And you know what he found there? Anonymity. For the first time, he wasn't a Tata, he was just Ratan. He got a job in LA, he fell in love with a woman named Carolyn, and they were all set to get married. He was actually building the simple, normal life he had always dreamed of.
But then, a phone call from back home changed everything. His grandmother, the woman who raised him, was really sick. He told Carolyn, I'll be back in a few weeks, I promise, this is just temporary. But right after he got to India, the Indo-China War broke out. Carolyn's parents were scared for her safety, they wouldn't let her come. And just like that, the story stopped. Their paths were changed forever. Ratan Tata never went back to live in Los Angeles, and he never married.
So he's back in India, his personal dream completely shattered. He enters the family business, but there was no corner office waiting for him. Oh no, he was going to have to earn his stripes, starting from the absolute bottom. They sent him to Jamshedpur, right onto the factory floor. He was shoveling limestone, working in the crazy heat of the blast furnace, doing the exact same back-breaking work as everyone else. It was a test, really. And for 10 straight years, he just put his head down and worked. No complaints, no shortcuts, just like his grandmother taught him. He wasn't just learning the business, he was proving he belonged there. So after a decade of grinding it out, they finally gave him his first big challenge. They said, here, take over Nelco. Now, Nelco is an electronics company that everyone saw as a total sinking ship. It was failing, deep in debt, nobody else wanted it.
But that quiet determination of his, it worked. For the next decade, he upgraded the tech, he systematically cleared the debts, and he pulled off this incredible turnaround. I mean, he took Nelco's market share from a pathetic 2% all the way up to 20%, and from a distance, the big chairman, J.R.D. Tata, was watching, and he was starting to see the future of the company.
But when Ratan Tata finally did get the top job in 1991, well, the old guard, these powerful directors who have been running their departments like their own personal kingdoms for decades, they were not impressed. One of them, a guy named Rusi Modi, straight up called him and his team jokers. They figured this quiet, unassuming guy would be a puppet they could just push around. Oh, they completely underestimated him. See, Ratan Tata didn't start a war, he didn't yell or make a big scene. He just introduced one simple new rule, a mandatory retirement age for every single director. No exceptions. It was genius, a total masterclass in leadership. With that one quiet move, he broke down a power structure that had been there for decades, and he cleared the path for his own vision. All right, so now the company is finally united behind him, and Ratan Tata was ready to chase a dream that was way bigger than just Tata. This was a dream for all of India, a dream to prove that it could stand tall on the world stage.
His first massive project, to build a car for India, by India. After 6 years of just relentless work, the Tata Indica was born. This was a huge deal, a massive statement. India had built its own car. And the people, wow, they responded. Over 115,000 bookings on the very first day. For all those people who had called him a joker, well, this was a pretty good answer. But the launch wasn't totally perfect. The car had some technical glitches. So, looking for a partner, Ratan Tata went to Ford. And that meeting, it turned into an absolute humiliation. The Ford executives basically looked him in the eye and said, "You can't run a car company."
He just left the room. Quietly. No fight. But that one moment of disrespect, it lit a fire.
And what happened next is not just a comeback, it's the stuff of legends. A year later, Tata buys the iconic British brand Tetley Tea. Then, in 2006, they buy Corus Steel, once a jewel of the British Empire. And then came 2008. Ford was struggling, and they had to sell two of their most famous brands, Jaguar and Land Rover. And guess who stepped in to buy them? The very same man they had insulted all those years ago? It wasn't revenge. It was just beautiful, poetic justice.
But for all the incredible global deals and the huge business victories, his real legacy, the thing we'll always remember him for, wasn't defined by what he bought. It was defined by how he cared for his people when they needed him most.
On November 26, 2008, terrorists attacked Mumbai. Their main target was the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, the absolute crown jewel of the Tata Group. And for 3 days, 3 long, agonizing days, as the battle raged on, Ratan Tata just stood there, outside, helplessly watching as his people, his employees, were trapped, hurt, and killed inside his hotel. After the attacks, he didn't just issue a press statement. No, he personally visited the family of every single one of the 80 employees who was either killed or injured. He sat with them, he held their hands, and he listened. And then he made a promise. Every family affected would get a salary for life. Their kids' education would be completely paid for. All of their loans would be wiped clean. And get this help wasn't just for his employees. It was for the railway workers, the street vendors, anyone who got hurt. It was an act of humanity on a scale you just don't see.
And let's remember, this was a man who was running 95 different companies responsible for hundreds of thousands of people. An empire builder who took his family company and made it a global powerhouse. But in a very rare interview, when he was asked about his personal life, he admitted something incredible. He said, "Yes, many times I feel very lonely." The man who built a home and a future for countless families never really had one of his own. That's not the voice of a billionaire talking. That's the voice of a man who gave everything away and kept almost nothing for himself.
And in retirement, his true character just shone through. He drove his own car, he'd invest his own money in tiny little startups run by young people, and maybe most famously, he once used his huge Instagram account to beg for a blood donor for a sick stray dog. Can you imagine? A titan of industry using his global platform to save one animal. That was the real Ratan Tata.
And his final act really was through the Tata Trusts, which own most of the company. His personal wealth has always been funneled back into helping others. We're talking about a staggering amount, something like 10,000 crore rupees. That's well over $1 billion, all given back to the people of India. His first and last thought was always, how can I serve?
He built one of the biggest empires in the world, sure. But his story shows that he'll be remembered for something more. For the dignity he lived with, the compassion he showed, and the quiet strength he gave an entire nation. And it leaves all of us with a pretty big question to think about. At the end of the day, what really makes a legacy great? The empire you build or the values you live by?